If a leader in Africa stands up to Western pressure and blocks tariff demands from Donald Trump, what happens next could reshape global power and trade. Today we dive into that scenario. Imagine President Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso refusing Trump's secret push for tariffs and Africa responding in kind. What follows isn't just a political standoff, it's a potential turning point in world history. It starts with rumors. A leaked memo surfaces in Brussels, indicating Trump has called on NATO allies to impose heavy tariffs on African exports oil, gold, rare minerals. The goal, to tighten economic control, weaken emerging competitors, protect Western industries. But it's more than economics. For many African nations, it's about sovereignty, dignity, and the right to trade on fair terms. Traoré speaks out. In Ouagadougou, he labels the demand economic warfare disguised as diplomacy. He refuses to comply. Instead, he calls for solidarity among African states. In this version of events, leaders from Mali, Niger, Guinea, and others join him. They issue statements. If the West enforces tariffs, then Africa will halt shipments of oil and gold to Western markets until terms are renegotiated. Global markets rattle. Oil prices soar. Gold spikes. Stock markets in Europe and America wobble. Industries reliant on African raw materials feel the pinch. Refineries, tech manufacturers, energy companies. Everyone who depends on those resources starts to feel the shock. Back in Burkina Faso and its partner nations, the reaction is mixed. Citizens rally behind Traoré's defiance. National pride surges. But economic realities bite. Shortages could appear. Some industries dependent on exports might suffer layoffs. Inflation could rise. Governments scramble to find alternative trade paths. New partners in Asia, Latin America, or inside Africa itself. Trade deals with China or India gain fresh momentum. Meanwhile, diplomatic tension heats up. Western capitals demand explanations. NATO holds emergency meetings. European leaders warn of retaliation, trade bans, sanctions, diplomatic isolation. International press labels Traoré as dangerous, or a hero, depending on perspective. Inside Africa, the narrative shifts. For years, many nations have felt squeezed by global trade policies, unfair tariffs, resource extraction that benefits external powers more than local communities. Traoré's move becomes a symbol. Pan-African unity receives renewed attention. Civil society groups, activists, trade unionists amplify his message. Economic independence is not a fantasy, it's an urgent necessity. On the Western side, industries that rely on resources from Africa gold for electronics and finance, oil for energy face supply disruptions. Companies start stockpiling, diversifying their sources, or paying higher prices. Consumers everywhere feel the ripple. Rising fuel prices, costlier jewelry or electronics, gold-backed assets becoming more speculative. Political consequences mount. Politicians are pressured by constituents. In the U.S., some voice admiration for Traoré's courage. Others accuse him of threatening global stability. European lawmakers debate the risk to trade. Election cycles may shift as foreign policy becomes domestic policy. Also, legal consequences emerge. Contracts, trade treaties, import-export agreements are scrutinized. Countries affected by tariff blockades might lodge complaints in international courts or trade organizations. Lawsuits over breaches of trade law or unfair competition may appear. Beyond economies and politics, there is a human side. Countless workers in exporting industries feel insecure. Local businesses in Africa that rely on mining or oil feel the impact. Citizens in Western countries watching inflation may feel betrayal by political leaders. The Global South watches to see if solidarity actually translates into tangible change. Media coverage becomes intense. News outlets chase interviews, leak documents, diplomatic cables. Narratives diverge. Some call Traoré a visionary, others warn of reckless escalation. Social media debates rage. Misinformation risks increase. Every public speech, every tweet becomes scrutinized and amplified. But in our scenario, there is room for diplomacy. Alternatives to confrontation may appear. African states might propose new trade blocs, alternative payment systems bypassing Western currency dominance. Mutual agreements could be made, where tariffs are negotiated rather than imposed. Western leaders may offer concessions, reduced trade barriers, better terms for exports, development assistance in exchange for cooperation. Then there is the long view. If this defiance holds, a structural shift in global trade could follow. African countries might become less dependent on Western markets. Investment patterns might change. New corridors of trade, infrastructure, energy partnerships with China, India, Brazil might solidify. Africa's bargaining power on the world stage could rise, but risks remain. If the West responds with economic sanctions or restricts investment, African economies could suffer. Poorer nations might be caught in the crossfire. Civil unrest, instability, corruption pressures could rise. Global financial instability could rebound on Western economies too. Let's think about individual lives. You might wake up one day paying more for gas. Your cell phone and electronics might cost more as gold, or components become harder to source. If you invest in global markets, you might see volatility. If you follow politics, you might find new leaders emerging who promise to challenge the old order. In the end, this scenario asks a question. Has Africa finally seized control of its future, or is the world sleepwalking toward a fracturing of the global order? The answers are not simple. What matters is that these possibilities, economic justice, political rebalancing, global instability, are real and just a shift away. As we close this video, reflect. What would you do if your country was asked to bow to unfair trade demands? Would you resist? Where do you believe real economic sovereignty lies? Thank you for watching, and if you found this exploration eye-opening, please like, subscribe, and share. More stories of resistance, power, and global change are coming soon.